Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining tonight. We've got a special program tonight, Savvy Tips for Starting a Small Business. This workshop from MSU Extension will equip you with valuable information about turning your ideas into a new business and will help you navigate the technicalities and avoid costly mistakes. The instructor is Beth Martinéz of the Financial and Homeownership Education Team based in Wayne County. With that, let's give it up for Beth. Thank you so much for doing this program tonight.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. So as I was telling Henry before we started, this program came about 4 years ago, and it came out of an idea that folks who are working in MSU's product center, who were coaches who help folks actually start business, who work with them one-on-one, they kept meeting with people who didn't really know where to start. And so we decided we would put together this sort of pre-starting a business class. It'll take us about an hour. And just to talk about, because there's things when we're getting started that you just don't think about. Now I come at it much more from the financial point of view, because that's my area of expertise is consumer finance and credit and the money side of it. A lot of our examples, though, are going to be food-based because I was working with folks from our food product center. So questions are welcome. We try to keep this current and topical, and let's get started. So we at Michigan State University Extension, we're not on campus. We are out in the community. I am based in Wayne County, and I am part of the Community Food and Environment Institute, which is natural resources, my team, financial and homeownership education, community prosperity, and community food systems. Somebody had asked earlier if I taught cottage food law and food safety, and that's not my area. That's either a community food system or from our Health and Nutrition Institute. They do a lot on teaching healthy eating, movement, social, emotional. We have our Children and Youth Institute, which is 4-H, academic success, career and workforce prep. And then, of course, MSU is so well known for ag and ag business, food production and marketing, quality business management, and biotech. And so we are out in all 83 counties bringing workshops. Now, my team has been very virtual for the last 2 full years, going on the 3rd year, because we are a small team, but we program statewide. And so our mission is to help people improve their lives through an educational process that applies knowledge to critical issues, needs, and opportunities. So getting started. These are things that I want you to think about. And when we're done, we have a supplement that has some worksheets in it. It has some of the resources we're going to talk about in it. And we will send that out to everybody who is here tonight. I'm going to move our pictures over just a little bit. So think about why you want to start a business. Now, before everybody joined, one of our group said that she had not found a job that suited her skill set. And so she was thinking that she was going to start her own business and use her skill set to something that she was qualified for. And what problem are you solving? Are you serving a need? Are you providing a good or a service? Who's on your team? And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that. And how much time do you have to dedicate to the business? Is it a career or a hobby? And there's no yes or no answer to that. I know a young woman who is a fabulous baker, and she has a little niche in that she bakes, and she's in the Metro Detroit area, all sorts of flavored bagels, and they're really, really tasty. But she also has a full-time job, but she's never really jumped in with both feet to make it what she does for a living. And so for her, it's a hobby that's fun, that's seasonal. She does it when there's farmers markets out, but she isn't really ready to do it full time. And that's fine. That works for her. She enjoys it. It's good. But if you want to make it career, we're going to have to maybe jump in with both feet. So is there a market for your product or service? Can you produce it? Can you deliver it? Can you finance it? Because we're going to have some investment. And what is your risk tolerance? And one of the worksheets that we'll be sending out has a checklist and sort of to help you work through what your tolerance for risk is. How much are you willing to risk or lose in starting your business? So how do we differentiate ourselves? How do we make ourselves look different? You see our little red apple among the green ones. How do we increase our benefits versus just, price cutting? What are our customers' needs and desires? What are they telling us they want and they need? How do we create points of difference? And then we focus on those differences and those points of differentiation. So we encourage start with a competitor log. Who is already out there doing what we want to do? Is there anybody? Are there a lot of people? Who's out there doing this? How big are they? What prices are they charging? What's good about their product? And then comments. And so this is a way to start thinking about what we're going to be up against. So is there a demand? Is there a need or desire for your product or services? And what benefits does your target customer get from your product? There is, in the Saginaw area, there are two young folks who have taken advantage of the new charcuterie trend. And if you don't know what charcuterie is, it's sort of usually meat and cheese and fruit and nut trays. And they're, put together, and they can be a meal, they can be snacks, and they've become very popular in recent years. And so these two young folks, one of them had a food background and one of them was an artist. And so the food background person knew how to put things together, and then the artist could make them look absolutely beautiful. And they started in their kitchens. And they are, I think, 2.5 years in, and they kept their day jobs. And then they have grown and grown and grown. And they started very small with friends and family, and then they sort of grew out of that. And now they're doing weddings and graduations, and they have a storefront, and they have been able to capitalize on sort of a niche market that nobody else was meeting that need. And so the benefits were that they get these beautiful displays of food. There was a need and desire for something different because everybody wants something a little bit different, a little bit trendy, and they move slowly. So where their customers get it? Well, they started just doing deliveries, and then they went to a storefront, and that particular business has expanded mightily. And they know that I use them as an example of a success story. And so, how many people are going to be interested in what you're doing? And how are you going to get the word out there? And then the other one, I'm going to move the little picture here. What is the income range and employment of the people who you're marketing to? That'll help you when you're setting your pricing. How expensive or how inexpensive do you need to price your product or your service at? Who is your market? So production, time. Do you have the time necessary to produce the product? Is it something you can do for a couple hours or on a weekend or nights? Or do you need to cut back on wherever your current income is coming from? How much time do you plan to spend on this project? Is it going to be 100%, 50%, 20%? And do you know how to manufacture on a commercial scale? Can you scale up? Can you make more than just what you could do in your own home? And what do you need to produce your product? What equipment, what goods, what services, what do you need? And how much does that equipment and those services, how much will they cost? So this is where we have to do some research, where our friendly neighborhood library comes into play. We can, go to stores and that sort of thing, but we can also do our research. And because we're starting out, we don't have a lot of money to do it. We want to do a lot of our research for free or for inexpensive. So logistics, how are we getting our ingredients? Are they local? Are they imported? Are there any supply chain issues? I think we found a lot of folks during the pandemic that supply chain issues were a huge, huge problem. And there's still not all of those logistics have worked themselves out. There's still backlogs of items. Sometimes, for at the very beginning, in beginning of 2020, if everybody remembers, there was a toilet paper shortage. And I don't know if there really was or not, but I think people may have been hoarding it, but you couldn't find it. And so if you needed that product, I don't know what you would use toilet paper for, but if you needed that and you couldn't get it, what are your alternative sources? Where else are we going to get what we need? All right. And if we can get it locally versus imported, there's a cost difference too. So, and where are we going to put things until we use them and until we sell them? How are we going to store them? If we're dealing with food items, there's going to be a shelf life. You're only going to be able to store it for X amount of time before you won't be able to continue to sell it. And how are we delivering? All right, are we putting them in the back of our SUV? Do we have someone to do it? Are we shipping? Are we using, a local market? Etsy, Amazon? How are we getting things where they need to go? And what kind of transportation do we need to get our things from point A to point B? So let's talk about ourselves for a minute. What skills do you have to start a business? And what skills do you need? And so I like to cook, but I'm not great at it. So I have some skills. I would need more skills about doing more than one thing at a time if I was going to start a business that involved cooking or baking, because timing is a skill that I know I don't have. Are you, making, say jewelry? Okay, if you make bracelets or you make earrings or what have you. Do you know how to do it? Do they stay together? Do they travel well? What skills do you need to learn to make sure that you have a quality item? And so what do you have to make you entrepreneurial, to want to start a business? And are your communication skills a help or a hindrance? Can you do what's called an elevator speech? Can you, and it's the amount of time you're spending in an elevator with somebody to tell them what it is you're doing or product you're making or what you're trying to pitch in a positive way so that you pique someone's interest and they may be interested in buying your product. Can you sell what you're making? So what are some qualities? Determination. You just, you're going to make it. You're going to do this and you have something good to sell or do. And you're passionate about it. And it helps if you are creative. And that doesn't mean being able to draw. It just means that you can sort of think outside just, the box and try new things and try them differently. Are you a strong people person? Because when you're starting off, nobody's going to know what you're doing. And you're going to need the skills to be able to work with and talk to and sell people that what you are making or selling is worthwhile. Are you willing to take risks? Are you willing to invest your time and effort and money into making your business a success? You enterprising, taking chances, and are you organized? Because otherwise, you can have, and I'm still going back to a food item, a mess in the kitchen, and you're up all night and you're tired and you're really not ready and you don't have things together. Are you organized? Do you know how much time you need to do things, how much money you need to do it? Do you have everything organized? Now, if we don't do well under stress, or we're very cautious, afraid to take chances, not enterprising, or a risk taker, or desire for a steady income, then starting a business might not be what works for you. So there is what's called a SWOT analysis. It talks about your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, all geared towards success. So what are our strengths internally? Things that you or your business does well, and the qualities that separates you from the competitors, and internal resources that are going to contribute to your success. So going back to the charcuterie business, they could lay things out in such an artful manner that people went, ooh, that looks really good. I want one of those. And then they told their friends and told their friends, and it expanded. If I'm making salsa in my kitchen, and it's tasty, but it tastes like other people's salsa, it's not differentiated, and I can't make it more than, a few batches at a time, then that doesn't separate me, sort of puts me into the pack. I need something that's going to set you aside. So what are our weaknesses? Do we have the space for our project, for our business? Do we have funding? And we're going to start spending more time on that. Do we have the time to invest? Do we know what we need to know? Do we have the knowledge, or do we need to do some more research? And are there any licenses or certificates or what have you that we need in order to have our product come to market? And so I said salsa. Salsa has a very short shelf life if it's not packaged correctly. And there's something called cottage food law, which governs, if you're making something, how it has to be made, how it has to be stored, what the shelf life is, how you have to label it. And there's a class that you can take. MSU does offer it. And you get a certificate, and there's a short one and a full day class. And that's just for food. All right. So, that there may be, if you're selling, say, financial services, a lot of times you have to have a license to do that. And so you need to know what kind of a license you need. You need to maybe have funding to back you up. And you need avenues to offer your products. So what do we want to avoid? Not having the time, not having the knowledge, not being fully licensed. What do others do better? And how can we find, a way through or around what they're doing to differentiate ourselves? And are there resource limitations? Can we get the material or equipment that we need? So right now, the economy and prices have been going up on a lot of things. And so it's like if you were dealing in wood, the price of wood has gone through the roof in the last 3 years. And so can we get the material we need? One, can we get it? Two, what's the price? And is our end product, can we price it at a point where we can make some money doing it? So what are our opportunities? What is the unfilled or unmet customer need? All right. Do we need another flavor of salsa? Well, it depends. Maybe. If we have a good new flavor of salsa, then that could possibly well be. What is the unfulfilled or unmet need? And are there upcoming changes in regulatory, political, or the social environment that may impact our success? And again, coming back, who's the competition? Are we the first one in this market? Or are we coming into a crowded market or somewhere in between? So what are the threats? Outside influences. What can get in the way? All right. And again, the changes to the environment and emerging competitors. If we've got a product that's, absolutely awesome, but everybody else is jumping on that bandwagon, how do we stay ahead of the pack? So let's talk for a minute about how you're going to put your business together. There are a number of different ways to do that. So usually the first thing to do is to get what's called an employer identification number, called an EIN. It's a 9-digit number, very like a social security number, but for a business. It is unique to your business, assigned by the IRS. Similar, but assigned for business. You will need it to open up a business bank account, to get wholesale pricing, to get discounts. And especially as you're getting started, you want to separate your personal finances from your business finances. You don't want to commingle those. So, sole proprietor, that's you, yourself, and I. You're doing it on your own. It's just you. All, revenue, all profits are yours. All expenses are yours. All responsibility is yours. The next one is if we have a partner or, we're growing a little bit and we don't want to have all of the risk on us, is what's called an LLC, a limited liability corporation. We still have a lot of the responsibility if things go wrong, but it's still under a corporate. We're sharing some of the responsibility and some of the risk. We may have just a partnership, a general or a limited. So general, so the two folks I said started the business in Saginaw. They had a general partnership to start, and then they moved it on to an LLC. They're not quite to a corporation yet. So it usually goes proprietor, LLC, maybe partnership. Limited, maybe there's somebody doing the work. The other partner may not have as big a stake in it, or maybe they're doing some of the financing, but they're not doing as much of the work, or vice versa. And then we get into our corporations. A C Corp is where you have a board of directors, you have stockholders, and they buy shares in your corporation. Then you use those shares, that money to invest in expanding your business. An S Corp is for a smaller corporation. There's still some personal responsibility. And then you can have a cooperative where everybody is contributing and everybody shares equally in the profits. So, it depends on how you're structuring. What are the costs? Do you need a lot of investors? Do you need to, pay them back? Who controls the business? Do you want complete control of the business? That may be just a sole proprietorship or just your LLC. What's your liability? All right. By organizing yourself and putting yourself into maybe an LLC or another kind, then if something, if there is a failure in the business, then you don't have 100% of the liability. How things are taxed, because as we get revenue or income, we will need to pay taxes on them. How you're regulated. Protect your intellectual property, and that's your idea. That's your trademark, that's your recipe. How are we going to protect that? How are we going to raise and grow capital? And if we want to sell the business or transfer some or part of it, how do we do that? So how you're structured in the beginning and ongoing will help determine how these things are, play out. So, costs of doing business. start talking about the money. There are variable costs, also called costs of goods sold. And if anyone's ever taken an accounting class, it's one of the first things they go over, cost of goods sold. And that changes based on the quantity, the units that you buy and sell, based on availability. Those are your direct materials and your direct labor. Those vary. Then we have our fixed costs, the operating costs, and these are incurred regardless of our sales. They're pretty much constant. So if you're selling things at a stall, say at Easter Market, and you're renting a stall, that price, whether you have a good day or a bad day, the price is the same. Insuring yourself and insuring your business is going to be a fixed price. If you're paying someone for bookkeeping or any legal help you may have, those may not be always fixed, but if you have someone who you're paying to do your books for you, then that'll be a fixed cost. So your fixed plus your variable are your total. So what do we need to think about? Understanding our costs and understanding all of our costs. So we've talked about the ingredients. Well, how are we going to package our product? Do we need, boxes? Do we need wrapping? Do we need jars? Do we need, what do we need? Do we need labels? How are we going to put our product together to take it to market and make it look attractive? And what is the cost of doing that? Labor. We're doing this for maybe a labor of love, but at the same time, we want to make business. So we have to make sure that we are allowing, especially if we're not doing this just as a solo act, we're going to have to pay folks to produce our products. And so how are we going to price it so that we think about ingredients, packaging, labor, so that we can make some money on this? There's a costing worksheet in the supplement that we'll send out to everybody that'll help you, and you can use it over and over and customize it to your needs to help you go through, what are ingredients costing? What's packaging costing? And as you're doing your research, you can write them on the worksheets so that you know what you need to do to come up above break even. So I said we're going to talk about food examples because the folks who helped me put this together were in the food area. So variable costs. What changes? Flour, baking soda, milk, egg, oil, toppings. This is our donut example, and we like it because the donuts are really pretty. We need labels and boxes. And we have to pay hourly label to help us produce these donuts. So what's fixed? Our insurance, our bookkeeping, someone to make sure that, we're keeping track of our money, and our stall rental. So in this example, variable cost per half dozen, so 6 donuts. Raw materials are $1.50, labels are 40 cents. Boxes are 27, and our hourly labor per half dozen, all right, we're not paying, low wages, are $2. So our variable cost per unit is $4.17 in this example. And then our fixed costs, our insurance is $25 a month. Bookkeeping is $10 a month. We must have a friendly relative doing it for us. And the booth where we're selling our product is $100 a month. And so our fixed costs are $100 a month. So how many units a month do we need to sell just to break even so that our expenses and our income are the same? So if we're selling our donuts for $8 for a half dozen, all right, these are gourmet donuts. Our contribution margin, which is our sales price of $8 minus our variable costs, that's our contribution margin, And then using this formula, our fixed costs, which are $135 divided by our contribution, this is our contribution per half dozen, is that our break even, we would need to sell 36 units a month. So 18 dozen donuts. Does that sound like a lot or a little? What do you guys think?
Sounds like a lot.
18 dozen donuts? No.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't sound, it's hard to say.
Go ahead.
I just saw we had a question come in.
So the hourly labor example on this is, and I don't know how long it takes to make 36 half dozen donuts. I don't know that. I never made a donut in my life. And so if it takes hourly per half dozen, and we said we have to do 18, so 18 times 2 is 36. If it takes us 2 hours, that's $18 an hour. And so you would have to break that out separately based on how long it takes to make the amount of donuts. Now, we're not making them all at once. If you think about it, we're not making 18 dozen donuts on a Monday and that's it for the month. So there's going to be a continual expense. And so you're doing it based on the time that it's taking. I don't know exactly how long this one takes. And so I apologize. This example came from our product center. And so if it takes, 10 hours, then that's, per half dozen. You could do the math and it would be a little bit less, but you're making them over time. So you probably make them, I don't know, daily or weekly to get to the hourly labor cost. So we got to get organized here, right? We're making 18 dozen donuts. So if we break that down, if we're selling, say, weekly at a farmer's market, all right? So Saturday farmer's market, wherever it is that you may be doing it. And so we have to sell 18, right, just to break even. So how about if we up it so maybe we'll make a little bit of money and we say, just for ease of numbers, we want to sell 20 dozen in a month. Well, that means we have to sell 5 dozen a week. That doesn't sound as bad, does it, as 18 dozen to break even. We sold 5 dozen a week. That's 10 half dozen packages. Does that sound more doable than doing 18 dozen in a day?
Yeah.
Especially for a small group, right? Because, or a small operation. We're not Dunkin' Donuts. We can't churn them out.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Is it kind of like different with Dunkin' Donuts, because sometimes they'll have like plenty of donuts or just more donuts galore, stuff like that?
Well, and they are set up for a large scale operation. Okay, so doing a comparison, they've got equipment to make, so if it's just you and I making donuts, it's going to take us longer because we don't have a big donut maker. We don't have equipment. We can't just roll them out. If you've ever seen it, if you've ever gone to like a cider mill in the fall when they churn out the donuts and they're just coming out and coming out really quickly, they've got different equipment than we're probably going to have when we're starting out. And so they've expanded up to scale. And so they also, because they've been doing it for a while, they've got it sort of down to an art form. But they're not making them as pretty as we are. There's our edge. This is what makes us different. We've got, I'm not sure if that's coconut or what, but we're not just, they don't all look the same. Here's how we've differentiated. But this is going to take us a little bit of time to make them look a little bit different. And so I probably shouldn't have said Dunkin' Donuts because that's not a fair comparison. They've been doing it for decades. They know how to do it. So their costs are going to be different also. But a lot of times those are franchise operations and they're often family owned and family run. And so hopefully they're paying everybody. We're going on the assumption that everybody is getting a good wage. But you know, when you're doing it with friends and family, sometimes that pay scale could be a little bit different than if you're paying an employee who, you know, just comes into work and then does their thing and then goes on their way. And so as we're starting estimating how much we can sell, is where we start putting our numbers together. So there is an organization, and it is nationwide, but they're definitely in Metro Detroit. It's called SCORE. And it's a group of mostly retired accountants, attorneys, who help folks and former business owners who will help folks put together a business plan, you know, start things going and help you with your numbers. And they do it for free. And they also have regular workshops and webinars on small businesses. And so I was fortunate enough to attend one this week, and it was on budgeting. How we start, and budget sounds like a fixed point in time. When I teach financial ed, we talk about spending plans because it's ever evolving, but they used the B word yesterday, so I'm going to as well. So it's estimating how much revenue and expenses over a period of time. And it's how we're going to track whether we're making money, what we need to do differently, what we need to tweak. And so we're going to start with, you know, our estimate. You know, we've started with, we need to sell 20 dozen donuts in a month over, you know, every week sell 5 dozen. So we're going to track what revenue's coming in, and we're going to track our expenses. And so I put together just a simple income statement. And as you grow and get going, you're going to need to have how much you're making and how much you're spending and what you're earning, so that when you're ready to expand, you can show any investors that you have a positive net income. So if we are selling, you know, our example was, you know, 36 units, so 18 dozen donuts at $8. Our revenue then, if we sell them all, was 8 times 36, and I can do that math real quick here because I can't do that one in my head. So, you know, 8 times 36, so for that month would be $288. That's our revenue. And then we would write, how much did we pay for supplies? How much was our labor? How much was the equipment? Did we have to rent it or did we already own it? How much transportation, point A to point E, those labels, and then what at the bottom was our income. Now, again, this is a very simplistic income statement. You can pull one off the internet that may be more tailored to your service or your product. But then we also need to talk about cash flow, because it's just not coming in, going out. It's ebbs and flows. So, you know, one week we sell everything and it's all good. But the next week it rains. Nobody comes to our farmer's market. And so we really don't have as much income on that week too, but we still need to buy, to pay our rent, to pay the utilities, those cost of goods, travel from point A to point B, and we're going to need that for the next week. So this cash flow budget can help manage the ebbs and flows of selling our product or our service, because it's almost never going to be the same from week to week to week. And so this just helps us chart and get an idea. Sometimes some of our products may be seasonal. Sometimes it could be, you know, something that people buy once a month, or it could be a weekly. And so this helps you know if you have times during the month where you don't have a whole lot of funding, and you can sort of bank it from a week where you had extra, or plan for it a little bit better. So what do we do if we're short on cash? Well, we hope we have some reserves, all right, for those lulls or those low points where we're not doing as well or just getting started. So we can borrow from our reserves. We can borrow from a bank or a credit union or other financial entity. We can find investors, people who want to, who find that our idea is as good as we think it is and want to get in on the bottom floor. So this quote we found, this was from John Gallagher, who was a Free Press writer. And he put this in an article that he wrote. It's small businesses don't fail because it's a bad business. They fail because of cash flow. And this came from Chris Wheat, who was the director of business research for JP Morgan's Chase. And that's why we have to talk about not just our brilliant idea for products or services. We've got to talk about the money. How are we doing on time? Whoops. Okay. So where's the initial investment coming from? All right. And do you have enough in reserve until your business becomes sustainable? Are you going to keep your day job? Do you have another income? Do you have enough to last until things take off? And that's why we do the planning and the estimating, so that we get an idea of when things are going to start growing. And so where are the funds coming from? Are they coming from our bank account? Have we been saving up for a while? Are we getting ready for this? Crowdsourcing has become a thing. GoFundMe is the one that comes to mind. I don't know good, bad, or indifferent about it. I just know that there's a crowdsourcing. Investors and traditional lenders. And this is sort of in an order of how you will probably go about it. Because I will tell you that traditional lenders are not risk takers, and they don't like to put their investment where they are not sure they're going to get repaid. So they're going to be the hardest one. So who's your network of support? Financially, you have investors. Emotionally, this is going to take a lot of our energy and a lot of our effort. Who's got our back? All right. Who's behind us saying, I think I can, I think I can? Who's saying, I got you? I'll pick up some of the slack for some other things. Who's backing us? Professionally, is there an association, a coalition, an alliance? I mentioned SCORE. There are a lot of networking groups. They may be product oriented. They may be geographically oriented. They may be, coalition, local trade organizations. Talk to folks, pick their brains, work on their ideas, and let them know what you're doing to get some excitement going. All right. So good credit is going to be really critical in the early stages, because you're going to need startup money and you're going to need reserves, and we're going to need that cash flow. And so access to capital is essential. Capital is, I use that word interchangeably with funds. All right. When you are starting out, until you are a full corporation, when you're starting out, if you are borrowing funds, you are going to have to personally guarantee those funds. So it's not an ABC charcuterie. I'm going back to my first example there. It's my name is going to be on that line. I am guaranteeing that my business is going to repay this loan or a line of credit that helps us with cash flow. And a lot of people don't realize that they have to use their personal, their good name in order to get that, in addition to whatever assets the business has. And so when you're getting started, you're going to need to use your own. So maybe you set up a separate credit card that you're using for the business, and that's your cash flow when you use it, on to get started, and you use it, to cover costs when you don't have maybe a good week or a good month, and then you pay it back. That helps with the cash flow. It's a line of credit. But personal, it's in your name. You can get one in the business name. It usually takes a year or two before you can get established in the business name financially. So do you have access to funds? And is your individual credit in good standing? So it's not just your good name. They're going to look at your individual credit history. And so why does it matter? Because we will pay less to borrow if we have good credit, and that lowers our cost of doing business. It gives us better and more options. If we have a good credit score, then we can borrow at a lower rate. It helps us, with our profit. It helps us with our cash flow, and we'll have more than one place to choose from. So you can check your credit at annualcreditreport.com. You can check it in other places too, but lenders are going to use the 3 reporting agencies through annualcreditreport.com. And so you can go and check it at, say, Credit Karma, or if you have a credit card or a car loan and they'll tell you what your score is, you absolutely can look at it there. But a lender is going to go through either Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian to look at your credit history. And they're going to look at how much, how you've paid, how much you owe as a percentage of what you have available, what your history, how long you've had a history, what types of credit. Do you have a mix of credit, different kinds of credit? Is there a car loan, a home loan, a credit card? And have you gotten a lot of new credit lately? And so as you're starting, don't get a whole lot of it at once. Get what you need to start and to keep you going for a while, for your reserve and for your cash flow. But we don't want to try all over the place and apply it, 5 or 6 different places all at once, because even though it's just 10% of your score, each time you apply, it's going to affect your score 3 to 5 points. And so be strategic about doing it. So this is a quote that we found that we like: credit or no credit can make a difference with a cash flow. Okay. When you apply for business financing, alternative lenders look at anywhere from 3 to 6 months of bank statements, of a good history of paying on time, and a debt to income ratio, which determine the amount of loan or line of credit that you're going to receive. And so I encourage you to get your financial house in order as you're getting started. And make sure that you can cover all your regular monthly debts as you're getting your business to take off. So you also want to protect yourself. Okay, we want to be risk takers, but we want to protect ourselves. And so how are you going to cover your expenses? I have a house note. If I'm starting a business, I have to make sure that I can cover that house and I have a place to stay while I'm getting my business off the ground. Okay. Where am I, how am I going to make sure that I have an income? So for me, if I was getting started, I would probably keep my day job and doing nights and weekends to get things started. But if I, on the other hand, had been putting money away for a while, I've been planning this for a while, and I had some money saved and I was ready to just go right into it, maybe I wouldn't have to do that. But planning for how you're going to do it and for how long you're going to give yourself are going to be really critical in your success. So let's ensure ourselves. Protect yourself, protect your business, protect your investment. All right, so we sort of started with these, but we're going to circle back here. Why do you think you're ready to start a business? Who has your back? What qualities make you entrepreneurial? And what can you do if your communication skills could use some, sharpening up? What can you do? What steps can you take? So we asked this before. What skills do you have? What do you do really well? And what do you need? I am not great at marketing. I know what it is. I know what needs to be done, but it's just not my strength. And so if I was starting up, I could have a great product, but I would need somebody to help me market because I know that that's a weakness for me. And so be honest with yourself. What are you good at? What do we need to do better? What research do we need to do so that when we launch our business, we can do it successfully? And there's a toll that can be taken, all right? If you're struggling to make payroll, losing customers, fighting staffing issues, not taking care of ourselves, eating too much or too little, not sleeping, not exercising, fake it till we make it, stress, all of these things can come into play, and we need to be aware that we're making this push and it's exciting, but we also need to take care of ourselves. So this quote from the CEO of Rescue One Financial, you can see what his sales were. This was 5 years ago. And he had a 1,400% growth in 4 years. But just before his business took off, they were on the brink of financial ruin. And mentally, he was just exhausted. They were close. They were expecting a child. There were sleepless nights, staring at the ceiling, waking up at 4 in the morning, thinking, when is it going to take off? All right, when is this thing going to turn around? And less than a year later, it did. They hit their niche, they took off, and it's been successful. So set a limit for how much of your own money and how much of your time you're prepared to invest and lose. So there's a feeling of being overextended, of not relaxing, and you could have a confidence problem. But as Mark Weppel of Pinnacle Strategy said, I used to be like, my work is me. And then you fail. And you find out that your kids still love you, and your partner still loves you, and your dog or your cat still loves you. And you pick yourself up, and we keep on going. And if you need help, seek a mental health professional, because it can be really stressful to start this, but it can be so exciting and so rewarding. So in a wrap up, it can be rewarding, and it is not for everybody. We hope we've given you some ideas of when and how to start. If you want to work with a coach, you can contact our product center, and that is in the supplement that we're going to be sending out, because I think, Kenry, you have email addresses, right?
Yes, Beth, I'll be sending out those papers either tonight or tomorrow morning.
Okay. Yeah, there's about 12 different sheets in there, worksheets and checklists and resources
Yes.
for you to use. We have to
Thank
talk
you so
about
much. That looks like a great amount of resources.
Yeah, there's a lot. So here's just a one page of what you're going to be sending out in different places. So one-on-one counseling, Detroit Kitchen, Small Business Development Center, SCORE, Michigan Department of Ag. So there's an awful lot of resources. And again, our local Dearborn Public Library has a great, didn't you say a great business section?
Yes, we have a lot of business books here, and so it's a good chance you'll find what you're looking for. And if not, please give us a purchase suggestion. We'll try to purchase. We'll try to purchase it.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? We had a couple, but not a whole lot. I knew I threw a lot of info at you. Let's stop sharing you.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Sure.
Let's say if I have a business and I own a restaurant, and then I decided to build a second restaurant next door to it, which is like the original, but added like a number 2 to it. Like, does it cost a lot of money or anything like that? Like, does it have a lot of expense to it or something?
So it's going to depend. Are you expanding or is it a separate restaurant?
Kind of like maybe like an expanding or something different, something like that. Does it cost a lot of money?
Well, it depends on if you are going to rent, lease the property, the additional property, or if you're going to purchase it. Thanks, Kim. Appreciate you joining us this evening. She has to sign off. So there's some unknowns here. We don't know, is the building already there? Are you building it? Do you need to purchase the property before you build it? What are you building it out of? Is it already a restaurant and you're just taking it over? So there's no one answer to that. It can be absolutely expensive, but here's the thing. You have the one restaurant, you're expanding. So you have something there that hopefully is successful. And you can use that to build on that, to borrow, to help you do your expansion. And so you've got an experience with one restaurant. So you are a better risk because you've got a track record, right? And then you can decide based on what's there or what you want to be there, how you want to proceed. So yes, it can be really expensive, because real estate is different all over. So what you pay in downtown Dearborn versus in Dearborn Heights versus, and I'm just using Dearborn because it's the library, okay, versus Midtown Detroit versus downtown versus further out. Location is going to be a big factor in the cost. Existing versus new build is going to be part of it. Purchase versus lease. You've got to find out all of those things before you know whether it's going to be expensive. The short answer is probably it's going to cost money, but how much is going to depend on a lot of different factors.
Sorry about that. My dad was calling for me. He was gonna cook dinner, but I'm gonna wait a sec.
Does that help?
Yeah.
You had a multi-tiered question there. So.
I have a question.
Hold on just a minute, buddy. I think I said your name incorrectly, and I apologize. Contact your local SBA, your Small Business Administration office, and they can give you some facts and figures too, and how that works. Yeah, somebody.
Yeah, my question was, so how can someone find what's like trending or before it starts trending of what people are selling, what kind of businesses, like small businesses are people doing? Because like right now, like almost a lot of females are like selling those fake eyelashes. There's a ton of people having bakeries out of their homes, selling wedding cakes, birthday cakes. So to kind of avoid the competition and kind of avoiding what everybody else is doing, how can one find what's trending maybe in another state or another country? Or
well, that's where you have to do, to see what's trending, I think you're going to have to go onto social media and see what's out there. Now, I am not a TikToker, but from what I understand, that's where the biggest trend things are. And so maybe get an account there and find out what's happening in other places. And I will tell you that, we in the Midwest, what's on the West Coast and what's on the East Coast eventually comes here, but there is a lag. And so maybe you want to visit either one of the coasts and see what's there that isn't here yet. And so, I mean, and I realize that I've, used this example a lot, but the charcuterie folks, that wasn't even a word that we used 5 years ago. It was a meat and cheese tray. But we started using, a nice French word and making it look pretty and doing it differently, and found something that not everybody else was doing. But, ooh, what a good idea. Oh, that looks good. So, baking cakes, like I knew a young woman who started making cake pops and decorating them and making them, however you wanted them to look. Not everybody was doing that. And so she saw that was a bit of a trend and got out ahead of the game. And she's still doing it. It's been, I think, five years now. So you've got to do some legwork. Go if it's cooking, baking, sort of thing. You mentioned the eyelashes, and that is become a thing. How could you do it differently or do it better? And start thinking about that. All right, any other questions? Well, if not, I appreciate you coming here this evening to join us. I appreciate your questions. I love it when you keep me on my toes. Hope we've provided you with some good information. So yes, Michelle, the information will be sent via email as a PDF, and it'll come from Henry.
Yes, I'll try to send that out either tonight or tomorrow morning. But thank you so much, Beth, for the wonderful presentation tonight.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Welcome, and thank you for the presentation.
All right. Good luck to you, Ryan.
And I'm going to be
Thank you.
going. I'm going to be getting ready for dinner.
Okay. Enjoy your meal.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night then. See you later.
So you can,